Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Pull Up Trey podcast, wherein my dear friend Trey, he pulls up. We've been doing a lot of episodes of this where we talk about the draft, like a lot, doing these, for us, deep dive scouts into players. And now we have some, I don't know, it's not breaking news anymore, but very interesting news in that the Raptors have hired a new coach, Coach Darko. He has done the introductory press conference, which was outside, filled with pageantry. There's no updates really on the assistant coaches. I talked to Masai yesterday. He seemed to have, a real distaste for us asking about what prospects they're bringing in and said he's keeping it all secret. So whatever, play it close to the chest. That's fine. That's fine. But we're joined by two other people today. It's myself, Trey, Curly, who is, in my opinion, the patron saint of basketball around here because he organizes a lot of our hoop runs. And he also is the podcast host of Live by the Three podcast, which is fantastic. It's one of the only sports podcasts that I listen to because I'm a snob. And then we also have Mac, of course, the man they call Mac, as it were, host of the Running Off the Screen podcast. And also, both these guys I listen to because, well, these are my pals. Mac, Curly, we'll start with you, Mac. How are you doing?
I'm good. The draft is what, like a week away now, so I'm almost like a little over a week away. So I'm excited to see who we're going to select.
Hell yeah. Well, you're going to tell us later, and that's fine. Curly, how are you?
I'm doing well, brother. Just relieved that we have a coach, and now we can focus on the draft. So I'm in good spirits now. I'm in good spirits.
Hell yeah. And Trey, no, I see you all the time. I don't really care how you're doing. Just tell us about your reaction to the coach.
Fair enough. Probably not doing as well as you with the answer of the presser.
I was
Moment
happy
of the
about that.
presser. But I'm doing good. I wasn't that concerned about the coaching situation, just being as like most of the issues seemed more like roster construction wise, but like happy they have some sort of direction though.
Have you looked into anything regarding Darko and what your thoughts are on his because basically everybody and their mom watched the same 5 things get aggregated. What did you think of the 5 things that got aggregated?
Yeah. I will say, not to be a snob, I've gone beyond the 5 things. I've watched a lot of 2020 Suns. I've seen a lot of Ricky Rubio and how they operated. So I think like we have players that operate in that like 0.5 like decision making. We have guys like Pascal, guys like OG who will be able to, if given spacing, which is like big F here, they'll be able to make quick decisions, find the open man, get to the rim in a way that they just haven't been enabled for years with Nurse. So, and Darko seems like a nice guy. So, I'm pretty happy with everything.
Okay. Curly, Mac, I'll let either one of you take it first. Have you gone beyond the 5? That's the new tagline.
Go ahead, Mac.
Oh, Curly. Oh, I was going to say, Curly, you can go ahead.
we're all gentlemen here. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. Well, as far as Darko goes, like he seems like the anti-Nurse to me, where the personable side is there. Now, Nurse wasn't like he was somewhat personable, but it looks like Darko can connect with the players and the media, as we've seen with you and Darko Samson. And I think the other thing about Darko is the development factor, right? His ability to push the younger guys, get something out of them, because at the end of the day, if we're trying to run this back and we're trying to build up a bench, we're not going to have a lot of cap room to bring in players. So we need to do as much as possible to develop those guys. And I think Darko is the best guy for that.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is that, you have to be personable. Like Nick, especially when he first came in, he's got a little bit of the Cockney accent. He's like a charmer. And that was kind of a lot of what he was doing. Darko is a different type of charm in that, like, he has kind of like that, hey, I'm just so happy to be here kind of charm, which is a little bit different. There's less suave to it. But in regards to the development and stuff like that, it's about instilling, confidence in a player and a belief in them that the framework you're building as a coach will be conducive to their success. And that's basically, as Trey kind of noted earlier, spacing has to be there. And you have to have routes to success for these guys that seem organic and that seem attainable. And that's where, in the coming weeks, we'll see if the roster construction meets some of the ideals that Darko has. Curly, have you gone beyond the 5?
Yes, I have. For me, what I love is the mentality that he had. He said it's not about winning a game, it's about winning every day. So it goes beyond the basketball court. And I think that's something that has been missed over the last couple of years. The mentality, the accountability. It seems like he is going to put a stronger emphasis on that and potentially hold these guys to a certain standard. And I think Masai and Bobby have done a great job drafting high character guys. So I think that kind of ideology with the guys that we have on this team, I think it's going to mesh well together. It's kind of like the mentality that I had as a coach when I was coaching little kids, and he alluded to this idea. Like he gets joy and seeing kids get better. So it seems like that mentality is going to translate to the NBA, because coaching is like teaching, and you think like in the NBA that's where it stops. To an extent, I believe that's true, but these are players that, they're getting paid millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. They might overlook something, and somebody like Darko might say, "Hey, you know what? Maybe you need to focus on this," and a light bulb will go off, and they'll be like, "You know what? Maybe I didn't think about that," and then that positive translation would trickle over. So it seems like vibes are kind of fixed here, and it definitely seems like brighter days are ahead and the dark days are behind us. One would hope.
One would hope. Let's cross our fingers for that. There was a lot of lip service paid to that
Absolutely.
by Masai, by Bobby, by Dan Tolzman even, and by Darko himself, who seemed elated and overjoyed to be part of the Raptors. Um, I suspect that most of that elation is around being a head coach at the NBA level for the first time. Of course, he's going to say, "This is the greatest organization of all time. They're so fantastic." But he did beat the odds in some regards as only the second European-born head coach in the NBA. Does anybody have any thoughts on that aspect of it? Because while I know we're not giving it a bunch of thought, but it is unique. Why do you guys How do you guys think those millionaire players who are mostly from North America or played their basketball 16 years and onward in North America and are used to North American head coaches and are used to this type of process? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Would this have shocked you more in 2014? Do you think the league has changed? Trey, you look like you have something to say. Sure, let's start there.
I think if it were, I think in general, yes, it's obviously more difficult for somebody who hasn't had similar shared experiences to coach a team. That's why most people that become a coach either played in the league or grew up in an organization for 10, 20 plus years, just because you have that shared experience. But with Darko, it seems that with several players on the Grizzlies and the Suns, that they've already have gone out of their way to stamp him as this great guy who brings lots of energy. And him personally, he seems like he's more human focused based on his like approach at basketball. I know in one of the 5 things that most people watch, he mentioned the reason why he makes more of a free flowing offense, quick decisions, is because that's what players prefer. So it shows that he's really versatile and he sort of caters his system or his program towards what's going to be more comfortable for the players, which would seem as though that everything he's doing is going to be preferable to what they want, and that will obviously help them connect a lot better.
I do wonder if into the future now, where coaches are seen more as like helpful to players rather than the coach, the domineering tactician who sets the play style and players are the chess pieces. That used to be what people thought of coaches. Like the coach is the big brain. There's a lot of racism rooted in this, by the way, but like the coach is the big brain genius. The players are the drones who act as he pleases and all that kind of stuff. But as player agency has been more respected and player empowerment has grown, gotten a lot larger around here. I think that coaches have to be more so in service of players. And I think that creates an easier lane for somebody who doesn't necessarily have the same background as played in the league for 14 years as a point guard for the Atlanta Hawks. And then you start talking like this, and then you coach for a bunch of years and you have a bunch of playoff pull-ups and all that kind of stuff. You can come and provide another path if you have the requisite resume and the testimonials from like Desmond Bain, Ricky Rubio, Devin Booker, etc. Mac, Curly. We'll start with Curly this time since he was such a gentleman to let Mac start the other time. Any thoughts on that dynamic of it?
I think it is interesting that the Raptors, big surprise, went outside the box because this wasn't his first. He was not their first choice, So he basically had to sell himself again as to why he should be a head coach, and I think that's a testament to him to not back down and to be motivated to, essentially reintroduce himself, a la Jay-Z, to this front office. And
I love that.
but clearly that was a selling point for them, right? So I think that approach, the mentality, I come back to what I originally said, the mentality, it seems like he's a strong-minded person, and we can pick a game out of the 82 last season where the Raptors just looked mentally defeated, and it could be his experience coaching in Europe, where I think he said that he went to coaching school in Serbia, and then when he went to the Spanish league, he had to go to coaching school again. I imagine somebody in our position, I mean, I went to school twice. If somebody told me I had to go the third time, I'd be like, see ya, I'm not going back, right? But it shows that he is motivated to do what it takes. And I think that's something that is appreciated, especially coming from the European background, the international influence that we have here with the players that, coming from Cameroon, for example, and Pascal, where everything had to be earned, nothing was given. So I think that that's why Darko and the Raptors have found themselves, because the ideologies, the experiences kind of flow well together. So that's the way I look at it.
This was something that Lewis mentioned on the podcast we did that was interesting, is like the Raptors keep finding themselves bringing in players who have a unique path to the league, and coaches who have a unique path to that spot as well. And Darko, as a guy who started coaching so early in Serbia and learned English early in Serbia because he was like, it's important that I learn this skill to grow further past that. And then had an opportunity in Spain and said, well, I guess I'll learn Spanish too, and it's not even that you have to go and connect with different types of players. It's that you have to grow yourself to even be able to be put in that opportunity. Masai Ujiri had a hell of a time giggling and laughing, telling us about like, oh yeah, Darko, the first time we brought him in was right after they lost in the playoffs. And then the second time we brought him in, he was on vacation like his third day, so he had to not be there for that. And then the third time, it was his anniversary. He had to interview with us. And he was like, so this guy, he was just the worst times to ever, interview with us, but he did great. And, he was giggling and laughing the whole time. I'm sure Darko was like, I'm glad that's over. But this is a guy who's clearly dedicated himself to the process and dedicated himself to being as great a coach as he can be. I'm just based on vibes, everything I've heard, not just what's been reported, but people I've talked to around the league, haven't heard a bad thing. Typically, you can hear a bad thing about a coach, and players, coaches, basketball operations, everyone, they seem to be into it. Mac, any thoughts on his long, winding path?
I mean, you said the word dedicated, and that's what I see from him. And for the fact that he's been a coach since he was like 16, and he's still going through it, he's still finding ways to grow and develop. That shows you that he's a lifer, that he's not going to quit on his team. He's not going to steer away from the path that this team wants him to go. And you also look at like his background as an assistant coach. The coaches that he coached under are all pretty much considered player coaches, guys that people love to be around, guys that really care about the community and the staff in the entirety with Scott Brooks. Billy Donovan does a great job over at Chicago now, even though the roster is in shambles, I guess. But and then you look at Monty Williams, that's a great guy. They're good friends. Taylor Jenkins. So he's been around great guys. He seems like a great guy, and he seems like a basketball. Not even seems. He is a basketball lifer. So it's just a good fit for this roster.
Well put. Okay. We were originally going to discuss draft prospects. Then the Raptors hired a coach. You two, everybody here watches way more college tape than I do. You guys actually watch it during the year. Crazy people that you are. Trey and I have covered a lot of prospects to this point. Something that I'm interested about is that I know you guys, probably not every little bit of the podcast, but I know you guys tune in on occasion. At the very least, you know some of the players that we've discussed. Of the people we've discussed, bring it all back. We want to retread this. What do you guys think about some of the players we talked about? Who are your favorite? Whether it's Sensibo, Hawkins, Koulibaly, whoever. I want to hear who you guys like on the board that we've already covered. Mac, we'll start with you.
I think I want to hear more of your takes on Cason Wallace, and not the defensive side of it. I want to hear where you guys think his ceiling is as a offensive player. I think there's a lot of untapped stuff there. Like he plays under control on both ends of the floor. He's a good pull-up shooter, but not the great shot creator. So I want to know where you guys feel he can develop into what once he gets to a program like the Raptors, let's say.
Wait. I kind of want to flip this back to you, actually. We've gone long. The listeners have heard us belabor it. You're the talent. We brought you on here. If you like Cason Wallace a lot, I want to hear your pitch. What makes you like Cason so much?
Well, I like the fact that he cleans up a lot of the leaks on your team, especially defensively, right? On or off ball. He's someone that you put him out there, he's going to make something happen. If his shot's not falling, he's going to find ways to get your team in the game, make winning plays. He's an excellent shot blocker for a guy that his height. I think he measured in like 6'3", 6'2" at the combine, and that surprised me for the amount of times I've seen him pin people off the glass and chase down blocks off of transition threes. So again, that's the defensive side. I think there's a lot that he can do offensively that he hasn't been able to show yet, and being in an offense like Toronto's where the ball is probably going to be moving a lot more, he's going to be able to be open more often than not than he was in Kentucky. I think he can give you like at least a 15 to 17 points a game and be really efficient at it while providing that all NBA level defense eventually. Obviously, he's not going to come in being an all defense guy, but I think he can develop into that. And I like his mindset and his poise. So yeah, that's what I think of him on the surface, but I want to hear everybody else's takes on Cason.
Curly, the people on this, sorry, Trey, but I'm going to move this on to Curly to start. Curly, the people here haven't heard your thoughts on Cason. I want to start there.
Well, I mean, if Mac selects him as a potential pick, it must be good, right? Being right 2 years in a row. No, I think Cason Wallace would be a solid pick. I don't think it's a safe pick. One of our biggest flaws was point of attack defense, and Cason Wallace would clean that up a little bit. Do I think he's going to be, a lockdown defender upon entry? No, I don't think so. I think that will be a work in progress, but I definitely think the tools are there, the physical tools, the mentality. Like you can tell that he's a player that takes that side of the ball serious, and that's rare, I think, in young players nowadays, where it's an offensive-minded league, right? You want to be able to score a bucket, get a bucket. But it's nice and refreshing to see that he takes defense serious, and he's not that bad of a player offensively. I think there is a lot of untapped potential. I think he's a great athlete. I think he has the ability to get into the paint. He definitely looks a lot stronger than his build. It looks like he could take some bumps getting into the lane. So I think that is also intriguing. And, just from the highlight tapes at the draft combine, he's been knocking down the corner three. So that is also very appealing as well. And more importantly, we just need a backup point guard. We currently have a point guard that is 1 foot out the door, potentially 2 feet to follow. So it'd be nice to get a point guard here.
So before I go over to Trey, a few statistics. So 64% at the rim for Cason. That isn't elite, but that's pretty damn good at the college level. It's very congested in there. 34.6% from three. He was 9 of 27 on pull-up threes. 33%, that's decent. That's good. Like, I know it's the college line, but that's certainly good. He shot 41% on his pull-up jumpers. He is, scouts I've talked to, the ones for public consumption on this podcast and elsewhere, I haven't met a guy who says, I don't believe in the jumper going forward. People believe in the jump shot. He's also then, Caitlin Cooper, who I know people on this podcast revere her as like the best person to listen to talk about basketball for like the real. And that's a correct observation on their end. She always talks about the war for the nail. Cason Wallace is a brilliant nail defender. He is not only going to be, once he's in the league for a few years, gets used to the pace of the NBA, pretty damn sticky at the point of attack. But I think with wingspan and with his alert and awareness, his alert style of play and aware style play defensively is going to be really, really disruptive in the middle of the floor without giving too much, because the Raptors fans have seen over the past couple of years players who have been disruptive, but that trade-off has also led to a lot of breakdowns. And Cason, I think, is a guy who can keep his feet in both camps of not giving too much up, but also still being a really good defensive playmaker. Also 16 of 46 on his runners for 35% over the course of the season. He has touch. He can hit pull-ups. The catch and shoot stuff, people believe in it. The numbers are pretty good. Trey, Cason, all that good stuff. Trayson.
I'm a believer. I think, like, on the most optimistic sense, like, if he's a starter on a team, he's probably going to be used similarly to like a Fred VanVleet, where his best usage offensively will be off the ball and he's knocking down shots. I think where he will excel in ways that Fred hasn't is that he has the athleticism and size to then take a defense that's been bent already and then get to the rim and actually score, whereas Fred has never really been able to. And then also defensively in the same way, where he can create havoc in the nail, create turnovers, and actually finish in transition, which is super valuable. You saw in the playoffs, like, transition buckets are just so key because it's really hard to score when people are closing off the rim and cutting off the easiest type of threes. So I would say he's someone that you would slot on your team, whether it's the Raptors or somebody else that says that we have like one of our 5 starters for a team that eventually contends.
He's also, I think, a guard who can guard up a little bit, maybe. Mac.
Yeah.
Sorry, Curly. You mentioned that he's not a safe pick. Was Cason?
No, when I
just
say
wanna
a
know-
safe, no, like if you're the Raptors, right? We have this approach where we take a safe pick. We don't think outside of the box. I don't think he falls into that category. I think he's a solid lottery pick. I would be amazed to see him at 13. So that's what I was alluding to.
Like,
okay.
yeah, he's not a good bet to be there. Like, it's not a safe bet to be there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Curly and
I thought you meant like, yeah.
Curly and I operate on the same wavelength. You guys will catch up someday. It's fine.
Wait, do you guys believe in like the Kentucky guard boost? Because there really hasn't been a bad guard from Kentucky.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
Who else are we working with? I know you guys watch a lot of. So we've talked about Cason. Who else do you guys find interesting that you're like?
Gradey Dick. Get Gradey Dick to the Raptors, please. That's the guy, man. You want to talk about vibes? This guy is walking vibes, man. Like, I'm considering getting TikTok just to follow this kid. Every time I see his TikToks, I'm like dying of laughter. But no, in all seriousness, like, he's a bucket, and he doesn't look like a bucket, but he's a walking bucket. I think, what was it? He was 44% from the field, I think, and maybe 40% from 3. That is absolutely essential for this Raptor team in this 0.5-second offense. Catch and shoot, floor spacing. Gradey Dick can offer all of that. I know, the one thing that everyone keeps focusing on is his defense. I think this team defensively is going to be great. One player is not going to break it all down, and he has the length, he has the athleticism, he has the size. So he's a very Raptors-y pick, anyways. He's just a little bit more offensively gifted, which is something that, please, can we get some offense on this team? And I think Gradey Dick can not only fix the vibes, but will give us a lot of what we need.
And aside from the shooting, sorry.
Yeah, go nuts, go nuts.
No, I'm just saying, aside from the shooting and the offensive stuff, like on ball, I think he's great off ball with his cutting, and he knows how to find angles to create openings for his defense or his offense to get through the defense. Yeah.
Agreed.
So I'm just going back through Josh Cotanero when we talked about Gradey. He sent me a big scouting report and, professional scouting report. So I'm just peeking at some really good stuff. But the good notes are comfortable movement shooting with varied gathers. He can go right to left, left to right. He can hop catch off of two. He has a nice right foot step back. He has a one-step spot up. Like a lot of these diverse setups for shots that help him as far as screen craft. And that efficiency on those shots is what makes you weaponize a lot of the actions that the Raptors currently don't weaponize, is that comfortability to shoot from there. So, and he's also not so bad out of the triple threat. 52% of his shot attempts were from three, 6 attempts per game, massive volume. Basically only Jordan Hawkins is beating that. And he still shot 40%. 25% of his shots were at the rim. He shot 63% there. For a guy who is not as quick with the foot speed, doesn't have as much vertical pop as people might like, he has a bit of craft there. And a lot of that efficiency is from really well-timed cuts too. And at the NBA level, where, there's more space, more room to play, as it were, especially for shooters, I think that's really important. Tre, we haven't really talked about Gradey Dick. I'm curious where you stand on. You were like way ahead of the curve. Our dear friend who shall not be named started out hating him because he's another like milk toast white boy was kind of the thoughts, but then he eventually he came around on him towards the end. Give us the Gradey Dick sell that you were giving back in November.
Yeah. Like look at the Miami Heat, like from like the shortest way to explain this. Shooting is at a premium. Every team that's won over the last few years has been a top 10 team in 3-point percentage. The big thing with Gradey compared to like say other spot up shooters is that when he gets the ball, he actually can drive, pass, and he's actually a sufficient rebounder. And I think from the defensive side, he can like a Strus, like a Vincent, even Duncan Robinson to a little bit. He can play within the confines of a team, and he won't hurt you defensively. He won't gamble for. He'll make his rotations. He won't gamble and put yourself in really bad places. He's going to be able to defend his position and actually make a rotation and offer some resistance just because of how long he is. He's a player that you probably aren't going to ask him to guard other wings at the point of attack. You're probably going to put him on a slower player as he ages and gains more frame. But he's going to this is another term. He's one of those players when he gets the ball when he's open, you put your head down because it's going in. Like Michael Porter Jr., they didn't show in the series, Steph Curry, those type of players where you just feel like this angst when he gets the ball. And the Raptors have none of those. So that would be amazing if we had that.
If you guys aren't aware, Tre has been crafting some new terms for the lexicon. He's been using the term an in theory player, which I love.
I've seen that one.
Put your head down player. This guy is carving his own lane. He's bending language to his whims. As far as Gradey, anybody else have it? I mean, Mac, Gradey, do you want a soliloquy for yourself?
I mean, you guys covered almost everything with Gradey. I have a pick who I think the Raptors are going to select if he's available.
Let's just go there. Everyone, just so everybody's aware, Mac predicted the Scotty Barnes pick, and that one is a little easier to predict. Blake, when he was still writing with The Athletic, He picked Scotty Barnes in the Athletics mock draft, and then everybody called him an idiot for about a month for doing that, which was kind of funny. Mac picked Scotty Barnes, and then this is the one that gets me. Mac said the Raptors would draft Koloko. How do you predict the 33rd overall pick, my guy? That's a little bit, I don't know. I don't trust you. You're up to something, but you seem to be the only one who ever knows who the Raptors are going to pick. So let us know, please.
He's the draft mole.
Yep.
I mean, if he's available, and let's say Cason Wallace and Gradey Dick are not, I think the Raptors are going to select Keyonte George, freshman guard from Baylor. Now, for me, he checks a lot of the boxes from what you look for in a 3-level scoring guard. The tools he possesses off the dribble is hard to teach, and I think it can translate to the NBA game in like live game scenarios. You know, people do their workout drills, and you're like, that's not going to work in a game, right? Everything's moving around. And I've been following Keyonte since like 2020, 2021, when he was in the FIBA 3-on-3 tourney. And
relax,
oddly
dude.
enough,
Why do you know so much?
And oddly enough, he was teammates with Gradey Dick in that little tourney. And every national team, I guess, games or competitions he's in, he always ends up being like the alpha. Now, if you look at last year at Global Jam in Toronto, if you can remember, he dropped 32 points on one squad, and then he went on to drop 37 points on Canada. And I said this before. I forgot what show it was on. But if you're looking at like how our salary distribution is shaping up, like, oh yeah, it was earlier in this one. Like, you need guys in the rookie scale who can give you production, and I think Keyonte will exceed that salary to production ratio that you're looking for, and he can develop into a star. Like, he says that himself said that he compares himself to Bradley Beal. I've seen people compare him to Jamal Murray. I've seen people compare him to a bunch of scoring guard, Donovan Mitchell coming out of Louisville. They have similar splits in college. So I don't know, everything that he does, and all on top of that, he looked like he trimmed down all the fat that people were complaining about. He's ripped right now. So I think his mindset is there, his game is there, and he has a lot of pro level moves. So I think at 13, it's going to be Keyonte George.
That's quite a sell. You gave the upside. I'll say I haven't talked about Keyonte with Trey, but I talked about him with Ben Pfeiffer, and Ben also really liked Keyonte. He wasn't as hard a sell for the 3-level stuff as you are. I think he had a little bit less belief in the handle and maybe the finishing at the rim, but you guys are in the same place as for the shooting. I went and watched some shooting after, a little bit before the conversation with Ben, a little bit afterwards. And while the numbers aren't insane, the versatility and the depth of the shots he's taking are really, really impressive. He seems like a guy who's primed to overperform his shooting, like his college numbers, once he finally gets to the league. I believe in the shooting for sure. I haven't seen enough of the like 3-level stuff and some of the ancillary playmaking to really buy in, but I like what I'm hearing. And apparently, since you always know, Keyonte George, Toronto Raptor. Anybody else have opinions on Keyonte?
I'm a Keyonte George fan. Similarly to
not
Ben.
a stan.
Fan. I can't say stan.
Okay.
Fan in the sense of he'll be able to create a level of shooting that the Raptors don't have, and he's able to also improvise in a way that many Raptors can't do. Everything that currently happens on the team is done through lots of hard work, trying to manufacture advantages, and he's a player that doesn't need an advantage, can create for himself and score. I think the sell for him is probably a smaller Devin Booker in a sense where he's not going to be able to create the separation needed, but he has the footwork, and he hopefully will be able to put enough actual muscle on where he'll be able to separate a bit more with strength, and he becomes a top level shot maker, a tough shot maker, where a lot of this other stuff doesn't matter. But overall, if they picked him at like 13, I wouldn't be against it. I probably would prefer someone a bit larger, just so that the Raptors have more versatility in what they're doing. Not Vision 6'9", not 6'9".
Drama.
But maybe 6'6".
Okay. Curly, we're hearing names like Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. Mac was at his grade 5 graduation. What are your thoughts on Keyonte George?
Well, I just locked in Keyonte George being picked on Bet365, in the top 15 because Mac, we're gonna be millionaires after. No,
Here at Bet365, you can.
I mean, not to this level, but I'm a shooter, and you don't have to sell me on a shooter. We need shooting on this team, and I think Keyonte George will bring that kind of confidence, and I think that's something that you need from an offensive-minded player, especially a shooter. You want his confidence to maintain at a certain level, regardless of how the game is playing out. And it seems like he doesn't waver in that. Like, he's always confident in a shot. It seems like every shot that he takes, he feels like it's going in. I love his ability to pull up. We don't have a lot of guys that can pull up in transition, take fadeaways. He seems like the player where there was a lot of games where the Raptors are using all 24 seconds of the shot clock, and it seems like that shot that goes off before the 24-second violation, it's not a good shot. It's a rush shot. It seems like Keyonte George he's going to embrace that and kind of give that bailout option, and a better bailout option than some of the options that we currently have right now. Everybody talks about the weaknesses. I don't really care. I think that it's something that he can improve on as he gets more experience, as he adapts to the NBA game, and he's a shooter. I co-sign that. I'm all good with that.
Mac, you got something to say?
One thing about the weaknesses thing, I get irked sometimes when people always go on weaknesses of these players. No player in the NBA is a perfect player. Where you get their value is how they can how they can impose their strengths on the court. It's not about what they can't do; it's what they can do at what level. So I'm just putting that out there. And also, as far as shooting goes with Keyonte, real quick, on open threes, he shot 18 of 39, which is like 30 or 46%. And when he shot unguarded on catch and shoot attempts, he was at 48%.
This guy's on the synergy page. I like that. But what you said about
I
focusing
don't
on strength.
Oh, sorry. I don't know.
Did you hand track that? Where'd you find unguarded versus catch and shoot?
I don't have
numbers?
synergy, but I have my sources, but I don't have synergy. Yeah.
This guy. This is what Masai gave you, the spreadsheet. Okay. It all makes sense. But to go back to what you're saying, how strengths determine, like, everybody gets really hung up on weaknesses to be exploited. But you're right. Strengths determine your path in the NBA. Weaknesses, of course, come into play. Of course they do. But, like Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, he needed to have something that stood out, and that really would have made his career last a lot longer, because he was a player outside of the shooting who did a lot of things well. DeAndre Bembry is a really good example of this too. DeAndre Bembry can shoot like 32% on catch and shoot threes. He does a lot of things well. He can handle a little bit. He can pass above average for guys his size. He could defend, off ball and on ball. But being impervious to weakness isn't as important as being able to make people submit to your strengths. That's a really great point. But thank you for the scoop. Keyonte George, Toronto Raptor. We'll leave that there. Kris Murray, Colby Jones. You guys have some dark horses you wanted to talk about. Curly, whoever you want to talk about first of those two, regale us, because I am behind the 8 ball relative to the rest of you. So this is a learning opportunity for myself.
Yeah, Kris Murray out of Iowa. I mean, Keegan Murray is there, so why not draft his twin brother, right? Especially, he's a lefty. That's why I brought him up. So I think Samson might enjoy discussing.
Sorry, Curly. I was going to say earlier, I had a joke. I'll say it now. if you want shooters on the Raptors, why don't you suit up? Okay, go ahead.
I'll tape up my fingers and I'm ready to go. Kris Murray, what I love about him, he's just an intriguing player. He's not an explosive athlete, but he just seems like one of the few players in this draft that is just sure of himself. Like, he's aware of his limitations. He doesn't lean into them too often. He just knows himself and sticks to his strength. He took on a much larger role than he did in his previous season. I think his production went from, if I'm not mistaken, I think he went from 9 points a game to 20. And that's a huge improvement, regardless of any level, right? Considering that he was not a number one option at any point, and then he becomes a number one option. I think that's a testament to the type of player that he is. He is a very versatile player in the sense that he has guard 1 through 5. It's something that the Raptors have prided themselves on. I think that he's a great help side defender, something that we've also struggled with. It's something that it's a component that he can bring to that side of the ball as well. But he's a shooter, and he's a confident shooter, and he takes good shots. And I think that's something that the Raptors can definitely benefit from as well. Shot selection is not very good on this team. At least if you get a player who's really sure of himself and he has that self-awareness, I think that's something that the Raptors can definitely benefit from. Now, he's not going to wow you in isolation, and this is why I think that, with Coach Darko here now, using this whole team concept, ball movement, off the ball movement, I think this is something that he can definitely excel at. When I look at player comps, I was looking at some of his highlights recently. He kind of reminds me of a Thaddeus Young with a better jump shot. Not as great as an athlete as Thaddeus Young.
I'm going to tell you right now, you just gave Tre nightmares.
But hey, prime Thad was not a bad player, man. He was good. He was good. He was good. But I only say that because of the way that he moves without the basketball and the way that he uses his length. Like, Thad could finish above the rim, but Kris Murray is not that. He has the ability to do so. He can run the open floor, and maybe that is when he's going to get above the rim. But he has pretty good touch. I think he's around the low 60s, low to mid 60s around the rim, which is a great touch for a guy at his size. So I think Kris Murray would be an interesting pick if the Raptors are able to get an additional pick. I wouldn't use him as a 13th pick. I think that's a little bit high, but if the Raptors can, potentially turn one player into a potential, top 20 pick, I would like him there.
Prime Thad with a jumper, that's a sick player. That's like a very good player. He probably isn't as bursty as Thad.
No,
but Thad is also like, especially in the later years, Thad is like a lot of guile and awkward movement that became successful. And, Keegan is also kind of similar in that way. Like, he succeeds despite being a little less bursty and using a lot of guile. Not that I've seen a ton of Kris, but and Tre and I actually have a friend who just despises having Keegan Murray on his team. It makes no sense, but he does. Does anybody else here have Kris Murray takes?
With Kris Murray, I think the shot's really gonna have to stand out for him to gain minutes, because he's one of those players, and our friend Goose will love me saying this. Malachi Flynn has made me learn my lesson. Like, with players that kind of do everything at like a C to like B minus type of level, it's hard for them to stay on the floor with like one skill that isn't standing out, because teams typically don't guard them or exploit that they aren't actually excelling at anything. Like with Malachi Flynn, he can make a lot of the pick and roll reads that you want him to do, but if he doesn't have a standout skill like burst or shooting, it's probably a net negative. Like with Kris, I think everything opens up if he's able to hit his shots at a high clip. And like if if twin genetics are a thing, his brother shot really well. So,
Mac, any thoughts on Kris?
I think you guys pretty much covered it. I have a couple dark horses, but I think Tre might have some stuff, right?
I have a dark horse too.
Okay.
For me, a couple dark horses. Ben already talked about, but Dariq Whitehead, I love him. I've thought a lot about like the past couple weeks. Just the talent between 13 and like early 20s, I think, is relatively flat to some degree. I know it kind of burnt us with that pick, but I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be opposed to a trade back. Like there's teams like the Jazz who have 2 picks, teams like the Nets who may have someone that they are in love with that would want to trade up with for a pick. I think a guy like Noah Clowney would make a lot of sense. He's a guy that's still fairly young. He's still 18. He's a great rebounder, both offensively and defensively. He's very switchable, 6'11", in that Nick Claxton type of sense. Is switchable and able to go on to guards, wings for end of shot clock situations. And with a lot of these guys who like propose themselves as like a stretch big, they don't necessarily put up the amount of attempts to give you that. Clowney, while he didn't shoot a great clip in college, is taking a lot of those reps and has that intentionality, and he's shown touch. He finishes everything that he gets at the rim. At the free throw line, he's around 65%, which shows that there's some upward trajectory for him to expand his game a bit more. And I think the league is shifting towards those type of bigs. You saw like Nick Claxton was super valuable heading into those like Nets playoff runs because he was so versatile, and guys who have the athleticism to burst up, second attempt, grab a rebound, finish at the rim, and get easy points for their team is super invaluable.
If anybody heard that phone notification, that was Masai hitting Mac saying, "Hey, don't."
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that.
Some people coming after me.
Yeah. Since we're in rapid fire mode, Tre had messaged me earlier. He said, "I'm taking a break from money making for this podcast, but I gotta get back to it." Mac, who are your dark horses?
Okay, I'll do 2 quick ones. One for the Raptors and one on my overall draft dark horse. First one for the Raptors, dark horse pick would be an Anthony Black. If we're looking at how Darko wants to play, he wants a lot of ball movement, a lot of instincts, a lot of guys with efficient, effective playmaking. So Anthony Black would be that guy, 6'7" freshman guard. Long story short, he's cut from the same cloth as a Josh Giddey, Tyrese Halliburton, with the playmaking aspect. And he averaged 15 or 13, 5 and 4 with Arkansas, and he shot 45% from the field. And he led the SEC in assists. Now, you remember when you were a kid running errands with your family and you would ask your parents for McDonald's and they would say you got McDonald's at home, and then you would end up with like a Compliments brand cheeseburger and McCain fries. There's an argument that if Raptors, if Bobby Webster was to try and pitch Anthony Black at 13, Basar would probably be like, "We have Anthony Black at home," and he would point to a picture of Delano Banton or something. Like he's probably not gonna go for it, but that's the dark horse. That's the dark horse pick there.
Bro,
and
this is a pro Rexdale podcast. What are you doing?
Oh shoot!
Street cred going down.
I called him a Compliments of brand Anthony Black. Man, I feel bad. I'm sorry for that. But yeah, overall draft dark horse would be Brandin Podziemski from Santa Clara, sophomore guard. I mentioned him in one of my pods a few weeks ago. He has a good feel for the game. He's shown the ability as a primary ball handler. He's a good complementary and secondary playmaker. He is a sniper as well, but he has the hooper mentality and underrated athlete. He shot 44% from 3 on 5.8 attempts, and he averaged around 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. And he's a 6'4", 6'5" guard. He's also a lefty, which is key. And yeah, he's that guy that I think has a great chance of being that late round guy that ends up making the all rookie team because he has a total package as an offensive threat.
So Pods was going to be the first. I said I was going to write about him, but then I started doing too many of the like prospect podcasts, and I had to do too much film to actually like write, analysis on each different guy. Podziemski is insane to me. How he
He's
got
really
rated.
good.
He's as far as I'm seeing, people are starting to bump him up draft boards. Like he's getting a lot more positive attention. But any guy who shoots 44% from three, takes the second side pick and roll and throws a scoop left-handed lob to his roller, I'm like, get out of town, dude.
He's nasty.
He has tremendous feel for the game. He's a better athlete than people think, but I still don't think that's like a positive of his game or anything like that. But I do think sometimes, and we see this all the time in the NBA, it's tough to judge, but like, it's more important that a guy figures out how to work within his own athleticism than it is that he's constantly like, oh, he has these really interesting measurables that jump off the page. That doesn't always work because you have to interface with the basketball and what's happening on the court. And Pods is like a great example of that. I like him
He's
a lot
really good.
too.
And he shot 44% from catch and shoot.
Man loves the catch and shoot shooter.
Yeah, you need those in a movement offense, right? So yeah.
Don't the Raptors know it? I mean, Fred shot like 28% on catch and shoot threes, and it cratered everything because they're like, hey, we need it from you. You're usually pretty good at these. He's like, I am. I'm ready. And then I think he was injured for a long time, and everybody's like, what's going on? This is really bad. Once Pascal stopped creating like 18 layups a game for his teammates, then everything went down the drain. Eventually, progressively got better, and then we lost in the play-in. Anyway. Does anybody have any other wild cards, dark horses? Not necessarily that we're going to talk about, but just names for the people listening at home to look up and kind of dig around on stats on.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it. Colby Jones. I think Colby Jones is an interesting guard. He's essentially a 6'6" point guard. He seems like a great connector piece. He doesn't excel at anything well. He's just what's that saying? Jack of all trades, master of none, or something of that effect. Yeah, he has great size at the guard spot. He has great finish around the rim. He shot around 68% at the rim, so that's pretty damn good. In terms of his 3-point percentage or his 3-point shooting, he's an improved shooter. How that translates into the NBA, we don't necessarily know, but he did improve. He shot just around 38%. From three. He shoots better on the left side than on the right side. Make whatever of that as you want. But he has great touch on the rim. He moves great without the ball. He doesn't wow you with anything. But I think if you're looking for a stable piece coming off the bench, which is something that I am absolutely yearning for, I think that's a great name to be looking up.
Hell yeah. Okay. Draft night, 23rd of June. There's a Raptors Republic draft party. If anybody wants to come chop it up with myself and others who will be there, I'll be doing a podcast from there. I'll be on my phone saying, Mac, are you sure it's Keyonte? Please be calling him in, because Mac can't come to that. But that's, hey, you win some, you lose some. The guys here, I don't know. Some of us at least will be at Summer League. There'll be some Summer League content coming up. A little bit more Darko coverage coming forward. Live by the Three podcast. Tremendous. That's Curly. Running off the screen. That's Mac. And shame on both Mac and Trey for making the same itch joke in their names. And, does anybody want to say anything before we get out of here?
No, it was just great having you guys on. Curly, I've seen you hit many of threes, so it's great to see you do it on the pod as well.
He lives by the three.
He's Patty Mills. He's literally Patty Mills.
It's not a brand, it's a lifestyle.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in with us. We hope you learned, and we hope actually even more that you enjoyed. All right, whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye. We got a podcast, ladies and gents.